I remember voting for him. It was Roosevelt.
Do you remember how much a gallon of gas was?
10 cents a gallon?
10 cents? And in the year you were born was
1939.
1939.
And there was nothing like going to the gas station. I can remember my mom filling the car up, so to speak, for $1.
Do you know how big the gas tank was? Well, I
Well,
mean, 10 gallons, obviously.
yeah, I mean, maybe it wasn't empty either,
Yeah,
but
for a
you
dollar.
could drive all week long on $1 worth of gas.
What was your earliest memory?
I think the first thing I remember is after we moved from Cape Cod to New Hampshire, we lived upstairs in my grandparents' house, and grandparent Gettysburg's, and I remember that he used to use a team of horses when he farmed, and one of the horses died. And so they dragged the carcass down to this sand pit. And I can remember pulling on my mom's skirt and saying, "Can we please go down and see the dead horse?" I had this fascination with this. Because I had ridden in the wagon with my grandfather and stuff, so I loved the horses. So I had this fascination where I wanted to do it.
Was everything he did like on a farm, or was
Yes.
it just a necessity thing? Or?
No, it was a total farm. I know that my grandmother used to peddle milk and eggs and butter. And my dad did that too as a young boy. As a matter of fact, he used the farm wagon to drive kids to school sometimes back in the really early days.
Your dad did?
Yeah.
Now this was all in
New Ipswich, New Hampshire.
Your dad grew up in New Ipswich?
Yes.
Completely?
Yes.
So how did he end up in Cape Cod to meet Graham?
Oh, it was the thing that they did, the older children, when they graduated from high school or the house was too small for all these kids, they would farm the kids out, and the boys would go down to Cape Cod, and there was a family down there that always took people from our church. And so Dad and a bunch of other guys went down to Cape Cod and trained as carpenters, I should say. And then, as I said earlier, that's how he met Mom. After work, he went to the beach, and there was this popcorn stand, and there was this beautiful young girl running the popcorn stand. And I hope we can intersperse a picture of Mom in that popcorn stand. But anyways, Dad took one look at her. I don't know. It was love at first sight for both of them, because here I am.
And they got married, between meeting and getting married? And...
Well, it was summertime when they met, and they were married in January.
Wow. And you were premature, right?
Yes. Yes. Very premature. And I used to love hearing my mother talk about what it was like to be pregnant back then. And she said she used to walk down the sidewalk, and she always had this habit of going ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And she was so proud of her big belly. You know, it was she just was really proud to be pregnant. Our first home down there was a little rented cottage with an outhouse in the back.
So they stayed in Cape Cod?
Yes, okay. Yes. And my bedroom as a baby was a little closet where I don't know what I had for a crib. Maybe they didn't invent cribs back then. I don't know. But anyways, and one of my favorite stories is because my father was very strict, quiet, proper, and my mother was a little stinker. She's always fooling around, always had a big laugh on her face, and it was April Fool's Day, and she said Dad was down in the outhouse doing what he needed to do, and she hollered out the window and said his ride was there. She also put salt in his coffee and tricked his sandwiches, and to know Dad, you'd know that this would not amuse him. I mean, he might have been laughing on the inside, but he never showed it on the outside if he could help it. It was funny to tell a joke to him or to him and Mom, because Mom would ha 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 ha, and Daddy would go, "What's the plot?"
That's funny.
So they left Cape Cod. I think I was probably about 2 years old. The grandparent Gettysburgs had a need to have somebody come back to the farm, and they offered to have mom and dad move into the apartment.
Do you know how many kids each, like your dad? How many siblings did your dad have? How many siblings did Graham
9,
have?
and mom had 3. Oh,
A sister. I know a
well,
sister, right?
two
Berta or
sister, two
something.
sisters and a brother.
What were their names?
Ethel, Roberta, and Georgie.
Grandma and Dad had not. Grandpapa had 9.
There were 9 kids in his
Can
family.
you name them all?
Oh yes, let's see. Alla, Mary, Ingrid, um, Lillian, Martha, and then John, Laurie, Bill, and Dad. I think that's. If I left one out, we'll stick it in later.
And that's Walter, right? His dad.
Right.
And he was the baby?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So one of the stories that I know about my dad when he was a baby is that he, um, the family went blueberry picking during the day, and his sister Lillian, who was about 10 years old, stayed home and took care of the babies. And all of a sudden there was a knock on the door, and Lillian peeked out the window, and she actually wrote me this story. Of course, I don't remember this, but she peeked out the window and saw the first black man she'd ever seen in her life, and she thought it was a boogeyman. So she took my dad and slid him under the bed, and his next oldest brother, that was Bill, slid him under there, and then she went under there, and they stayed there till Mumu got home.
Oh, wow.
With the other kids from picking blueberries.
Oh.
And Mumu explained that there are people with different colored skin, so I guess, nobody was totally traumatized, but I think it's a funny story. The first story I remember Mom telling about her childhood was that she was premature, and back then they didn't have incubators, and so they had her in a little box on the oven door, and they had the oven on low, and that was her incubator for the first, I don't know how many weeks or whatever, but anyways, I think
Probably
that's
like a miracle baby then.
yeah.
That she survived. Huh.
And I was thinking about my grandparents too.
Which ones?
The Raymond side of the family, Mom's side of the family, they were fairly tall. I would say, like my grandmother, which we called Nana, was at least 5'5". And speaking from 5'1", that's very tall. Mom wasn't tall. She was probably 5'2", 5'3", and got shorter as she got older, just like I've done. But my grandfather, Raymond, which we call Grandpum, actually, he was close to 6 feet, if not taller. And Uncle George took after him.
That was your mom's brother, right?
Had that height. But now go to my grandparent Gettynbergs, and they were both of short stature, of the short persuasion. And neither of them spoke really good English, especially Mumu. She would more understand finger language, like she would point to a cup and say, you want a drink? And I remember one time going to visit. Dad went to help Grandpa do something, and I brought a doll and asked Mumu if she could make me clothes for the doll. And I don't know if she was, oh my goodness, I don't remember her being like annoyed, which I might do. But I went home with clothes on my dolly, and I can remember her sitting at the treadle sewing machine, putting the little scraps of cloth together.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome.
how we doing?
You're fine. You got 8 minutes. So, you said 2 years after you moved into Cape Cod, you moved
to New Ipswich.
In with the
upstairs over the Gettynberg grandparents.
Because they needed help.
And they needed help, and both my parents smoked cigarettes, and Mumu was mortified. She was upset to the max, and she would come up the stairs. Now, of course, I don't remember this. Mom would tell me about it. She'd come up the stairs and say, "I smell cigarette smoke." And how she could ever say that and not speak English, I don't know. But anyways, this is my mother's story, and I'm stuck with it. So they moved. I guess Mom couldn't take it anymore and was unhappy, and they moved into a little rental cottage in New Ipswich, and stayed there until they bought the Gettysburg farm on Route 124 in Greenville.
And that's the one all us kids would visit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And that's where I think my sister and my brothers, I know my brothers were all not born in that building. They were born in the hospital, but were conceived there. I can't remember if Shirley was born there or not.
But there, the cottage they rented.
Right.
Sure. And Shirley's 4 years younger than you?
Yes. I also remember not too long ago, I was looking at some papers that belonged to my parents, and I didn't realize, but my grandparents co-signed for my mom and dad to buy the farm.
Oh.
And it was under $10,000.
I was just going to ask, you know
It
how
was
much
about
it is?
90 plus acres, and an old farmhouse, and an old barn, and the floors in the farmhouse were bad. I remember when Dad tore the boards up. Well, first it was like 18 layers of linoleum, and then he finally got down to the floorboards, and for a while we had to walk on boards across the beams while he didn't.
Refurbished.
Yeah, he didn't move real fast on fixing things. He was very thorough, but he was on the slow side.
Well, he worked a full-time job
Yes,
and worked
yes.
the farm. The farm wasn't like a
No,
full-time living.
our farm, we did sell the milk for a while. We had milk cows.
But that wasn't your only source of income.
No, he worked outside the home. I remember World War II when Daddy got drafted. I remember piling in the car and going down for his physical, and Mom sitting there wringing her hands, crying.
How many kids at the time?
Oh boy,
Because that would be like 40
probably just Shirley.
something.
Yeah,
You were born in 39. Okay, so Shirley was just a baby.
yeah,
I don't know when World War.
46.
Okay.
I don't remember. We'll have to look that up. Anyways,
Insert information here.
so Daddy comes out of the little door, and he looks at Mom, and she's crying and crying, and he said, "I didn't pass the physical." And now I look back on it and I know why. It was because he had a floating kidney and he had varicose veins. As a boy, when he walked to school, one of the rules was they could not walk along this granite stoned edging to the bridge. And of course, kids are going to balance on that. And he did, and he didn't balance correctly, and he fell. And it was a good 20 to 30 feet down to the water. He landed on the rocks, and his sisters helped him get out and helped him hide the fact that he was hurt pretty bad from his mother, because she would have tarred
Killed
and
him.
feathered him. Yeah.
After he almost died, she would have killed him.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Huh.
So all our lives, I can remember Daddy always wore stockings with these garters that held his stockings up. They were kind of like the earlier support hose. And it was because of those varicose veins. But it's funny because it's not that eventually got to him. It was the cigarette smoke. He got colorectal cancer, and they cured that. And they say if you've ever had cancer, that's what kills you. So, but he died, he had lung cancer. So.
That's what both him and Graham had lung cancer,
Yeah.
right?
Mom had a weak heart too. Mom had congestive heart failure, CHF, and she had 3/4 of a cancerous lung removed. But she also had a weak heart. So maybe that was a result of her being premature. I don't know.